People who have completely ruined somebody's life, intentionally or by accident, whether they deserved it or not. What happened and why did you do it? I sent an anonymous tip in to the police that this guy had a significant amount of drugs in a hidden compartment in his car and that he regularly sold them to underage teens. I also tipped them off that he was driving this vehicle around without a valid license in case they needed a reason to pull him over. These tips, inevitably, led to him being investigated, arrested, charged, and sentenced to a significant number of years in prison, both for the drugs and other things that were discovered about him. Why did I do it? He was in a relationship with a family member of mine for several years and was emotionally abusive and controlling to her throughout. No matter what he did to her, she refused to leave him. Then she discovered he was cheating and confronted him, at which point the abuse turned physical. He became increasingly violent after that. She didn't want to report any of it because she didn't want to start any drama with his family, and she didn't want anyone to know what was going on. Embarrassed or ashamed, I guessed. After a particularly violent incident that put her in the hospital, I thought that if I didn't do something, then next time he would kill her. So I took the information I had, that she had confided to me about previously. I found a public computer and I used it to contact that police. I made sure I included as many details as possible so they'd know it wasn't a joke. Not too long after that, they showed up at his door with a warrant to search his car and things went on from there. She never put it together that I was the one who alerted the police. I will never tell her it either. A few years after he went away, she met a genuinely great guy who treats her well, and she's happier than I ever saw her. I don't regret what I did at all. This had such a satisfying ending. Good for you that you didn't get violent with him. I don't know if I'd be able to come to a nonviolent resolution with someone that repeatedly physically hurt a family member. Do you know that I give you money for uploading my videos to TikTok, and the one who gains the most views in a month gets an extra $1,000? More details on my Discord server, link in the comments. I had a butthole professor who would line us all up and grade us on our appearances, paying special attention to all the ladies in the class when he made really awful, derogatory comments on our appearances. It was a journalism class, and his excuse was that appearances are important. One day, he lined us all up and wouldn't tell us why he ordered us the way that he did, but all the attractive female students were at the front of the line. He walked down the row patting each of our heads and giving us a grade, like he was playing Duck Duck Goose with grades. A, B, C, D, F, F, F. I was an F. I suddenly realized that this crazy man had the potential to destroy my really hard-earned perfect GPA based on really unfair criteria. So I decided to do something about it. I started recording him in class, and I assembled the best hits of the most offensive, sexist, foul things he said. I also fact-checked his resume, which he'd given to us on the first day of class, and it turned out half of it was fabricated. He had virtually no journalism experience at all, although he had played a reporter on TV in several primetime TV shows. I brought my tape and fact-checking data to the dean. They let him finish the semester, but they intervened on grading and terminated his contract at the end of the semester. He never worked as a professor again. How the f*** did this butthole get a teaching job like with the actual f***? I confronted my mom when I suspected she was having an affair with an underage boy. She denied it, and my family hated me for causing drama and repeatedly accusing her. Eventually, she confessed and went to prison. My dad stood by her. I saw him cry for the first time ever, but she still treated him like crap. He visited her every single visitation. After being released, she was on strict probation for years. She wasn't able to return to her job. My dad finally divorced her because she was still selfish and always blamed other people for what happened. They had a lot of debt at the time, and now she is impoverished. But she never said sorry or took responsibility for what she did, so I try not to feel too guilty. I sued a couple for everything they had, and as we near the end of it, they told me I've ruined their families' lives. Backstory, they were my dad's estate's executors. Mom already died and became my guardians. They told me I was adopted, which wasn't true since it turns out I was a Crown ward, and I lived with them from when my dad died on the 8th birthday until they kicked me out around 16 on 17. Turns out that's when the estate funds exhausted themselves, so I had help and had them served. Evidence points out they used the money on themselves and were really awful caretakers of both me and the estate. I'm 24 now and a lot had happened, most of it not good. This should be settled at some point in December 2015 after 5 years of judicial process. I don't feel bad that their lives are ruined, but I don't feel vindictive. If anything, I find it sad how pathetic they became to steal from an orphan. You didn't ruin their lives. They ruined your life. Then they got caught. About a decade ago, I lived next to a gay couple. One day while getting ready for work, I heard breaking glass and decided someone must have dropped something in the kitchen next door. Only the sound of glass breaking carried on over the next several minutes, which was enough to alert even me that something fishy was going on. I looked outside and discovered a teenage boy halfway in through their bathroom window. I told him I'd already called the cops and he needed to leave. He did, and then I genuinely called the cops. 20 minutes later, a police car turned up and a couple of constables started looking around the property. Then another car turned up, and another, and then a van, which seemed like overkill for investigating a failed burglary. After an hour, a cop came over to my place to take a statement and asked if I'd ever noticed the spiky plants in the garden behind my neighbor's house. Oops. After work that day, one of my flatmates told me the neighbors wanted to see me to say thanks for reporting the burglary and would I mind popping over. I was a little concerned that maybe they just wanted to knife me for getting them in trouble with the law, but I thought I'd better talk to them and see how it was going to be. They actually did want to say thanks, which made me feel a little worse about unintentionally narsing on them. I built homes in Juarez, Oaxaca for families that were living in scrap shacks. These regions became even more inundated by cartel violence over the years. Some of these families were murdered by the cartels for their homes. The road to heck is paved with good intentions. When I was 11, I took part in a judo tournament. It was the fight for the first place, and I threw him to the ground, but he fell very wrong, breaking his neck, resulting in him being paralyzed. Saw him a couple of times afterwards because he lived in my neighborhood. He never smiled or even looked a bit happy after that incident. There was always this deep sadness in his eyes. 11-year-old me threw the prize for the first place into a nearby lake. It still haunts me to this day. When I was 15, I had a teacher send me this long email professing how in love with me he was in detail with some graphic content. I went to my favorite teacher, the only adult I was close with, who sent me to the guidance counselor who got police involved. It turned into a whole undercover sting. I think I'm using that word right. The police, through my email, exchanged emails with him for months. Eventually, there was a trial and he went to jail. He had a wife and a daughter my age. I still to this day feel awful that he couldn't take her to the ice cream store or his daughter's graduation, registered sex offender. I think he mostly deserved it, and I'm still glad it happened to me and not somebody who wouldn't have had the strength and support to handle the situation. But a part of me will always secretly feel a little guilty and wonder what if I had just ignored the email. In middle school, my friend and I really got into catfishing, but back then we didn't know it had a name. We would make fake MySpace profiles and get on chatrooms pretending to be other people. There used to be a cell phone company called Alltel. They had prepaid phones with unlimited texting as long as you had minutes, and you could change your number just by calling and following automated instructions. So we would always talk to all these people pretending to be someone else, and when someone busted us or got too weird, we'd just change our number. Sometimes we would even switch phones over the weekend and pretend to be each other's pretend identities. I don't know why. We were weird, dumb, tricking kids. Well, my friend ended up with this extra weird dude. She told him she was 15, which was actually 2 years older than she really was. He was a serious pervert and wanted her to do some really weird crap, like send him naked pictures while she's laying in her parents' bed. Pretty much everything he wanted her to do involved sneaking around her parents, like he got off on knowing she could be caught by them at any time. Of course, she never did any of that because he thought she was a petite blonde white girl, but she was really Native American. Then he starts wanting her to sneak out and meet him. It was more like he wanted to sneak in through her bedroom window and freak her while her parents slept in the next room. Like I said, we were tricking dumbasses and decided to take the opportunity to do our own version of To Catch a Predator. But we didn't actually want to meet the guy, so we sent him next door to my mean butt neighbor's house. He once shot my dog with a big gun for peeing in his driveway. It was the reason behind our decision. He drove from an area code on the other side of the state, don't know exactly what town he lived in. We turned out all the lights and ran around trying to peek out of the curtains to see, but we never really got a good look. He started calling her phone back to back, and we start hearing shouting, then getting shots. It did not come from a baby. My parents woke up, and we watched the guy get taken away in an ambulance and his truck was impounded. My parents were really freaked out. They thought our neighbor got robbed. I don't know what that guy told my neighbor or the police he was doing there. I never found out anything about it, but I'm going to guess he didn't tell them he was there trying to f*** a 15-year-old. I'm not sure if it ruined his life, but I'm sure it tricked it up quite a bit. This all happened over a decade ago. One thing I know for sure is I'm monitoring my children's online activities. Old middle school theater teacher of mine had been sleeping around with students once he moved on to teaching high school. He started making moves on my then girlfriend, so I sent a couple emails around that school district about him. He's divorced and in prison. Thank you. After years of suffering through my brother's idiocy and downright illegal behavior, I turned him in for taking out multiple credit cards in my name. I was trying to buy a house, and I had no idea why I had 3 credit cards instead of 1. Even more importantly, I did know why 2 of them were maxed out. He broke into my parents' safe. They actually used my mom's freaking day as a combinations, got all of my personal information, and took out credit cards. He did it to my parents too. This was after he had stolen jewelry, sentimental grandmother's jewelry, right out of my drawer. He threatened to stab my mom. He stole one of my dad's work vans. Somehow he managed not to go to jail, but he's on probation with a long record. If you haven't watched my other videos, then be sure to watch this one. I bet it will amaze you. Or you can watch all our videos in a row in this playlist. Write your stories in the comments, subscribe, turn on the bell, and go to our Discord. There we give you money for uploading our videos to TikTok. You uploaded, you gained views, you got money. Link in the comments.